All right, fantastic. Well, I'm excited today to be here on the InsurTech Leadership Podcast with Heather Wilson, CEO, and Mubeen Rabbani, Chief Product Officer of Clara Analytics. Welcome.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we're going to be tight on time, so I'm going to jump right into it. So, you guys recently launched your data engineering as a service platform. And as I understand it, it helps transform messy siloed data into clean AI ready intelligence and lays the foundation for the next era of agentic reasoning in insurance AI. So maybe even as a starting point, you guys can tell us a bit about Clara for those who may not be familiar, and also about this new offering that you guys have.
Sure. I'll take the first, and then Mubeen can jump in as well. So, Clara Analytics is the leading AI claims platform in workers' compensation and in casualty lines, auto, and general liability. We are triaging cases after first notice of loss, and we are trying to understand the severity of the case, trying to ensure that it's on the right trajectory from a treatment perspective, understanding the litigation propensity with it, the strategy of the litigation, the management of the litigation, trying to settle. We're looking at leakage opportunities when it comes to subrogation, potential abuse. So every given day, we have thousands and thousands of cases on behalf of our carriers and self-insureds that we are triaging. And when the data comes in through the batch process overnight, any one of our models could detect that something is happening in the case, and we're alerting that to the adjuster with the explainability, the summary of what's going on with the case that's dynamically updated on a daily basis, as well as the next best action. So we're really trying to get to positive outcomes on the cases for our carriers and self-insured, and making sure that the cases are constantly being redirected, recalculated, and the right attention to the right of cases. One of the things that, as much as we focus on the AI agent front of it, we've realized now after 7 years that organizations continue to deal with their data issues. So as you said, Josh, eloquently, there's siloed data. I mean, even to work with us, we set up our data engineering pipes. It could be 5, 6, or 7 hookups just to make that work, besides getting the core claims data out of their core system, or it could be out of a data lake, or it could be from a TPA. We've got to get those medical bills, right, which could be in any type of format, PDF, scans, what have you. And so carriers and self-insurers are still dealing with the ability to ingest that data, the ability to cleanse it, to harmonize it, standardize it, and then map it. So every piece of data has to be mapped to a claims case, and it takes a lot of effort to do all of that. And so we decided, listen, this is a part of what we do for onboarding, use our Clara AI platform. So why not go out and provide the data engineering as a service to our clients? Because more and more of the automation and the data agents knowing the data quality is at a certain index and threshold, that the data has been mapped appropriately, that it's coming through the ingestion appropriately. So often now this is automated and autonomous. So it's a big part of our offering so that people can use the data served up for any type of AI asset. I don't know, Mubeen, if there's anything else that you would add to that.
No, you hit the nail on the head, and this is all in the spirit of helping to change those claim trajectories. We're focusing on each of our kind of capabilities on a measurable impact operationally and financially, and most importantly, the ability to use that back and forth data integration based on the that aligned and cleansed and normalized data to go back to the claim system. Right. So we're operating as a system of insights on top of a client's installed core system.
Got it. And so were there particular observations about sort of the way your clients were using your existing solutions, or just more general observations about the way companies were trying to implement AI projects that kind of drove the release of this new offering?
That's exactly right. So we continue even after years. I mean, listen, I used to be the chief data officer at, Citigroup, AIG, and Kaiser Permanente, and data management has always been a big part of a chief data officer's mandate. And it's still one of the top issues of being able to make sure you have the quality of data. But because, right, this whole plethora of big data, of unstructured data has come into our ecosystem, and it's so important, those risk notes and all of those legal and medical documents. There's so much great mining of data that we have to make sure that all of that is mapped back to the cases. And that's very hard for a lot of these carriers to be able to take all the silo data. Some of it, a lot of it, honestly, is externally that they've got to be able to bring in anyway. And so we just realized, listen, this continues to be a big obstacle for them being able to get into their AI journey. So let us go ahead and just help them, with this lift. And, many times, a couple of our clients, not only do we serve it up for our Clara platform, but, their data is being served up to use for other AI assets that we don't have in our capability wheelhouse. So yeah, we still see it as a big inhibitor to clients. And I think the second area that is really important for us, and Mubeen just touched on this, is as much as we have an AI platform, we have a control tower that exhibits out to the chief claims officer or the CEO or the president that every time that you get a Clara alert that is triggered and the adjuster takes action, there is a financial correlation or an operational efficiency correlation to that. And so it's really nice because everybody wants to make sure they understand the lift. What is the lift by using a platform like Clara? And so our control tower allows them on a daily basis to see what these AI capabilities are delivering to them financially and operationally.
And in terms of Mubeen, maybe you could talk about, sort of you have all this fragmented claims data, and then you're looking to turn that into something that can be reasoned over. Like, could you give maybe a couple of use cases or talk about from a product point of view, kind of how that comes together?
Absolutely. It goes hand in hand with deriving those right use cases and capabilities. So whether it may be in workers' compensation, where you have a lot of these adjusters worried about everything from basic medicals to extended lost time, or an auto with social inflation and attorneys coming in, you really need to be able to reconcile the daily changes in data as a claim develops, along with the structured data, in the claim system, the unstructured data that may be in notes and comments, as well as more unstructured data that's historically just been locked in documents, right? So it is about not just considering what's in the claim system that's easily accessible via IT teams giving you this queries and analytical data, but it's that confluence of all these streams of information and being able to normalize and reconcile them. And that's where the power of this, of the data engineering and the pipelines come into play. It's to be able to take all of that, normalize it, and build those relationships and feed those into models and analytics.
Got it. And like, is there a progression in this? Like, do companies kind of have to crawl, then walk, then run, or is the technology such now that maybe they can go straight to a sprint out of the gate?
No, it's definitely like a maturation, if you will, and this is why we even help them along versus just saying, hey, we're a SaaS company and we're gonna give you a license and start using our tools. It's very much understanding the differences across every client and their data infrastructure and their technology stack. And then being able to say, okay, based on your data, how can we help you launch? And then how can we help you grow along with our capabilities? So everything from, well, wait a minute, they may not have all of that insight into their legal performance. Well, we'll help them develop a roadmap hand in hand so that when they are ready, these capabilities are turned on for them.
Got it. And either one of you, like, do you have a perspective? I mean, obviously, I think most people would say data is the foundation, but then, you've got to have privacy, security, regulatory compliance. You've got to have your next levels of tools, and they could be internally developed, they could be external, and then you go, right up to your AI governance or your data governance groups in the organization, internal resources, external resources. Like, Heather, maybe do you have a perspective on kind of what that whole sort of vertical stack up that ideally builds on top of your foundation looks like?
Yeah, and we've been operating this way ever since we started, Clara, and we've always been testing for the bias in our data. We've always made sure, right, that people understand, where there is PII, where there isn't PII, what's needed on these cases, what's not needed. And we actually, when we lead even our sales calls with our prospects, we have a whole section that we talk about that, of how we constantly are doing that testing. Obviously, all of the compliance and the SOC 2, that's all, table stakes as well. I have seen over the last year that all of the carriers do have AI governance committees, and we knew that would happen as we started to see the maturation of the acceptance and people jumping into their journey beyond, looking at their core system. And we're always prepared for those. I think we've been prepared before they even were conceived, because that's how we have always built our mindset of our platform. Because we are highly regulated, we make sure we understand anything that's come in from the respective states. And our head of data science is very much always in tune with anything that comes in new. But it's just a part of our hygiene and our own governance that we constantly do our testing, and our data engineering team and our security team on the infrastructure is also constantly doing testing. So we've been, we've never been a wild west like startup company. We're insurance professionals. We've all grown up in insurance, so we come with that mindset of being, very risk averse and being very thoughtful and mindful of how we deal with the data, how we constantly test, how we treat people's data, and give this substantiation and evidence base of those practices that we use.
So I think there's still many people who are struggling to understand, what agentic reasoning means, and how is it different from traditional automation or machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe dive into that and talk about how you see it evolving, and
Sure.
is there going to remain a place for both, or how do you see the different technologies interplaying going forward?
Sure, I'll start and then I'll hand over to Mubeen. So I use this analogy all the time because it just really, to me, brings it home to people how they already use a machine learning plus a reasoning of an application. So I use the driving application Waze, and I use Waze as an experienced driver that knows many times my routes, or I don't know my routes. And so in Waze, obviously there are models that have learned all of these routes. And that's like our platform. Our platform has learned all of these bodily injuries over, the last decade. And we have one of the largest back-end contributory databases based on that. So just like Waze learns all the routes, our cases have been learned too. Our cases are constantly updated because we have new cases coming in. Just like with Waze, the routes are constantly being updated because people do crowdsourcing. They are saying there's traffic ahead, there is construction ahead, there is a police officer ahead. And so just like with Waze, when you put in your routes, you're given different routes, and the routes could be based on, here's the pretty route, here's the one that has the tolls, here's the one that's the fastest, the longest. And that's how we think about, okay, the models have learned, that's machine learning, and they will keep on learning. But the reasoning is where the agent is saying, okay, I am constantly recalculating the routes of this case. I am constantly redirecting the direction of this case. But you, as the driver of the case, you as the adjuster who has a lot of experience, you have to choose the route. Just like when you're driving your car, you choose which route that Waze is giving to you, because it's important that we stay in that space. We will reason with the adjuster because all of the data coming in will be able to do all of the correlations and all the patterns much quicker, right? And we'll be able to know the propensity of things happening because the models have learned on history and history. But just like driving the car, I have to make the final decision which route I want to take based on I see what's ahead in my routes. And that's the same way that we offer it up from an agentic reasoning, right? There is automation, there is autonomy, but we still want that human adjuster to make that final, that final decision. It's not with Waze, it's not Waymo, right? Waze still has the human. Waze asks you to take the choice on the route. We have the human adjuster. Clara's asking you, given all the propensity you see that could happen, choose your route for this case based on what you think is best. And that's how I think machine learning plus agentic reasoning is really going to continue to bring these capabilities to the adjuster. Do I see a day that all the autonomy with the agentic reasoning is probably just going to give them just A, B, or C, multiple choice along the way? And that agentic reasoning could reason with them to hand it off to a specialist maybe. That reasoning could be push the button, right, for you to generate this type of briefing for this, right? Or to reach out to the claimant. So I think that reasoning is going to constantly prompt, but it's going to be more autonomous as we continue to allow that to come in front of the adjuster, and they get used to the cultural change of having that type of an application in front of them. I don't know, Mubeen, if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, no, I would just add, think of machine learning as a service and capability for agents to use. Keeping in mind that, at least, especially in our world, the state of a claim changes every day, right? And what we're really trying to bypass is the system of diaring claims out and only acting on them on a set schedule, when we know events happen on these claims all the time. And so that's where perfect use cases for AI agents to stay on top of not only the machine learning models, but the document models or the unstructured data models, to say, how do I reconcile all this information and present it out to the adjuster so that they don't have to reconcile all these different streams of input.
So I know in some of the materials and some of our prior conversations that you actually have kind of many models that are working together. Mm-hmm. And so could you maybe explain this multi-model system and what that does that single models can't?
Sure. So it really is about where one model would look at one dimension of data or one specific aspect of a claim and the risk. We are taking multiple different aspects of risk. So when I talk about different aspects of risk, each one of those are models in and of themselves to predict what will happen on a claim. And then also using different types of AI, different types of models to understand what is coming in from those multiple streams of data, the structured data, the unstructured data, the documents, combining all of that with analytics models to then say, I have a complete picture of where the claim has been, where the claim is now, and where the claim is going to go. And not just on one claim, but all of the claims at any one point in time. So you really get a constant changing, evolving picture of the risk on your entire book.
So I'm going to loop back to your Waze analogy, Heather. Mm-hmm. On Waze, you can change the voice that you get. So if there were a voice for Clara or a personality for Clara, what would it be?
I think we would allow that to be, customizable and configurable to where that adjuster lives and what they're used to. I think that's how we would
wouldn't
do
be
that.
Batman.
I think we'd give them some options, right, for their voice to text capability.
Right.
So, okay. So Heather, you've talked about AI psychology and how different generations perceive and trust AI. So, how are you seeing adoption progress? What are the biggest challenges you see? Any signs of momentum you see building?
Yeah, it's interesting. Everybody's coming in, I think pretty hard right now. Mubeen and I were just talking about this morning. A lot of people understand the role of the course system with the workflow through the administration piece of it. That intelligence piece, that additional ability to have an AI agent really be in front of you in the cases and tying together all the various pieces of the data is something that we're seeing chief claims officers and presidents and CEOs go, I know I need to be in this AI journey. I know that. I know that I'm getting to this place with a population of adjusters that they won't be here in the next decade because, they will have this retirement cliff that's happening. And then I think they are thinking about how do I get the next set of generations who want these tools and have a different psychology about, using the tools, that they have to prepare themselves for the next, decade of the next generations of talent that are coming in. So, at any given point, we're dealing with multi-generational adjuster populations. And so, we do a lot of things of AI certificates to show them, wow, because you took these alerts and took actions on these claims cases, look what you did as a corporate citizen for your organization. And so the chief claims officers love that AI certificate program because it really shows, right, the value of what the adjuster is doing beyond taking actions on the case, what that means financially to a broader organization. So yeah, I think AI psychology is something that I'm really, really focused on here because it's something that I found that every field, even students that are studying now, they have to know their field, but they can't go out into that field without the technical fluency of what AI and the new tools are bringing to them. So yeah, they need to be able to interpret what AI models are saying to them so that they can either take the output or maybe there's times that they need to edit the output. So they need to still know their domain of expertise as they go through school. But it's the how they're going to do their job that is really changing now with the technical fluency on top of their specialization. And that's happening in the claims professional field as well. And so there's a really big cultural change happening with adjusters that have been doing this for 20 to 30 years versus the generations that are AI native, app native. They're just like, I expect this. I really expect this. I don't expect to do all this mental math, all of this mental putting together, right? Yes, do I want to have empathy and be there for the claimant? But I do expect technology to help with, a lot of what is going on around me with these cases. So I think the next decade is going to be really different, honestly, with how this changes.
And so if you were someone working in claims, what would you be sort of demanding now? If you were bubbling up and wanted to be able to do your job better, what would you be looking for?
Go ahead, Mubeen.
Yeah, I mean, I would start with something different than the status quo, right? A lot of the environment that they're coming into is still legacy technology, right? If you're Gen Z, do you really want to be working with a green screen system, right? It's not good for it. It's not something you would look forward to in terms of career development. You want to be working with a lot of the same tools that you've grown up with and are native with. Before it was mobile, and then it was, now it's generative AI, and in the future it'll be agents, right? So making sure that the technology is moving with the generational change that we see in the workforce.
Are you applying this technology to other areas besides claims?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I would say we're using a lot of the same strengths and capabilities to number one, expand our analytical capability, right? So, and a lot of that starts to span, what was historically a gap in, how the overall operation worked between claims and underwriting and a lot of the other different functions across an insurance company, because that all of that data is relevant across multiple use cases. Now, obviously, like our core user here is an insurance adjuster, but also you are taking those aggregate insights, and the future is the underwriter, the actuary, etc.
Yeah, I think one of the areas that we're seeing is because people don't want the surprise of the exposure of the claims attached to the policies. Once you start to use our Clara models, you'll start to see a change happening. Like cases will be closed sooner. Okay. We'll start to detect reserve mismatching. So that on the actuarial side starts to make their loss triangles start to shake a little bit, if you will, because the models are going to use. And so when that happens, we are finding that the president and CEOs want to bring both claims and actuaries together to talk about, okay, we have to look at this differently because we have AI models in here that are suggesting that we close it, that we can close it faster, that we don't have to have the same payment. And so that dynamic is really a big part of what's changing, which I love because I've always wanted that actuarial and claims, that feedback to come together. And so we're seeing that now, especially when we have a president and CEO and our implementations. They really love the change that the models are bringing about.
Yeah, that's great. So anything else you'd like to share about what's coming from Clara, or anything in particular that just excites you most about the next 12 months or 24 months for Clara?
Mubeen?
Yeah, I would say just really expanding those connections between data sources, and that speaks to the kind of the agentic functionality. Just putting that in front of the users to enable them to make the best decision out of a range of different potential possibilities of knowing where the claim, again, to that point of where they've been, where they are, and where they're going to go. And we've seen this tens of millions of times across all of the data that we see on a day-to-day basis, and then using that, especially in providing a very high degree of self-service analytics, getting not only the alerts, the predictions, those outputs of agents and models out to them, but also the ability for them to touch and feel the data and get that level of comfort and fluency with what are all the underlying movements and things happening across their exposure base.
I think what you'll also see for us is a lot of orchestration of data and outputs of the models, multimodal. So what I mean by that is, on a given case on a daily basis, we have 20 models that are constantly surrounding the case. And those models and the output of those models are going to start to really be orchestrated and have a way of speaking to each other, not just as a siloed model all the way around. The other piece is because we have two platforms, right? We're constantly looking at the intelligence in the documents, medical and legal, and then we're triaging a case. Those two are going to also be combined as we go into our next year. So we don't want to leave behind a piece of data that is needed on a case. It's not just around summarization. It's about what are some of the, really nuggets in those documents that are so important, that have to speak to the models, that have to speak to the adjuster's notes, that need to be understood to move the case forward one way or the other. So we're not going to leave a piece of data behind as we go forward into next year.
Great. Well, appreciate the time you've taken. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
No, thank you so much, Josh, for the opportunity.
Yeah. Mubeen? Heather?
No, thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No. I was about to say thank you, Josh, for the opportunity.
No, absolutely. So Heather Wilson and Mubeen Rabbani of Clara, thanks so much for joining me on the InsurTech Leadership Podcast.
Thanks for having us today, Josh.
Thanks for having us.